You know, it's kind of hard to believe, but once upon a time, Carrera GTs sat on lots. That's right. They sat for extended amounts of time. In some cases, I heard stories when I was working for Porsche selling them. I sold at two different franchises in the United States, one at a very small operation in the Southeast, and the other store being a fairly large premier rated dealership in the West. Um, and when I went to one of the last trainings when I was still with Porsche, I heard a few of the old dogs tell some stories of back in 2005, even early '06, if I'm not mistaken. Um, Carrera GTs sat. They were There was a couple examples of cars that sat for almost 2 years on some of the East Coast dealership lots, believe it or not. And in some cases were sold at some pretty big discounts. Um, I know it's hard to believe in these times, and that's quite the contrary to the rave that we've had and we've experienced over the last several years with Carrera GT and all Porsche product in general. Well, really, all the analog drivers cars, generally speaking, have shot up in value since we can no longer buy such engaging vehicles like Carrera GTs. But nonetheless, this one has been owned previously by Jerry Seinfeld, the late great Jerry Seinfeld. He bought it new um, from Manhattan Motor Cars in New York. And it's, really a great spec. It's only traveled 3,700 miles, so it's not such low miles where you're going to feel guilty driving it. Um, and enough, I would argue that it's, based upon what I've seen with the Carfax and with recent maintenance, this one is a perfect candidate for somebody who wants to own uh, one of the last great analog supercars, but still put, some reasonable mileage on it, or hopefully just drive the piss out of it. But either way, it's not one of those sub 1,000 mile examples where you feel guilty about driving it a lot. So I think 3,700 is a good spot to be, quite frankly. I'm personally a huge fan of the black on black. There's several hundred. I think it's the numbers like almost 400 of the Carrera GTs that were brought to the U.S. were finished in GT silver, which of course is a great color, but there's an awful lot of them. There's an awful lot of them in that color. So anytime I see one that's not seal gray or GT silver, I definitely get excited. And black, how can you go wrong with black? The interior on first pass through the pictures, I thought it was actually black, but it's technically dark gray. Um, which I guess, as you can see with the steering wheel in the light, it definitely does have a little more of a grayish hue to it, but looks right at home with the black exterior. Now, I actually am a huge fan on Carrera GT of the carbon fiber shift knob. You had an option. Well, to my knowledge, there's only two different knobs. You have the standard beechwood shifter and then the carbon fiber knob. I've never seen anything besides those two. And quite frankly, I think the beechwood shifter, I don't know. Now, granted, it differs on the color, which one looks better, but I think overall the carbon one it just has a more racy look to it, of course, and I think it's a little more fitting of the Carrera GT's character, quite frankly. I mean, you've got a race pedal box, a race style pedal box down there, and I think the shifter that's orchestrating the shifts working in tandem with a clutch that's basically race car spec. I think one that's carbon just is a little bit more at home there. Uh, but yeah, this one's had some a recent engine out service just not quite 2 years ago to take care of a rear main seal leak and the clutch release module, of which the clutch release module is basically a wear item. It needs to be replaced after, well, I've heard varying times and varying amounts of mileage, but what it does is it actually will leak fluid onto the surface of the clutch itself, allowing potential slippage to occur. So, and if I'm not mistaken, I think there was an updated design or a recall on that from the original design that improves its capability and reduces leakage. Now, some of you might be asking, well, were the valves checked? You know, these cars technically, according to the service manual, do need at least an inspection, or should have, excuse me, an inspection of the valves um, every 4 years or 30,000 miles, I believe is what it says there. And, you know, quite frankly, I've followed these cars since, well, for a long time. And everything that I've seen and read and heard, you know, very rarely do the valves need to be actually shimmed or adjusted. And very rarely, even on 30,000 mile examples that are driven and enjoyed, do they need to be adjusted. So it's a little bit of a double-edged sword. Um, you know, it's obviously expensive to go in there and check them and have them looked at, and but again, it's not a it's one of those things that Porsche covers their butt by saying it should be checked, but really very rarely, just like on my Yamaha R6, you know, Yamaha says you should check them every 20,000 miles, but very, very rarely are the valves ever out of spec on either of these machines. So the tires have very, very few miles on them. I think it said they were replaced when the car had about 2,000, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, overall, a very well presented, well cared for example of one of everybody's favorite cars, and you know, these are just gonna continue to skyrocket in value. I don't see any downturn anytime soon. The original luggage set, it didn't appear was included, but the current owner just purchased not too long ago a matching set to go with the car, so nice little touch there. So you really have you have a complete Carrera GT. You have a Carrera GT that has everything that you in a great spec, serviced. You know, it's got some of the rear main seals are known to leak, regardless of whether they have miles or with age. So it's nice that that's been taken care of for the next owner. And overall, again, I'm actually glad this thing isn't an ultra low mile example. Um, Hopefully, whoever buys this car enjoys it, as they should. As they should. No accidents. You also got the original title with Jerry's name on there, showing proving that he owned it. I don't know what more you want. What could you possibly ask for? A celebrity owned, low-ish mile, no accident Carrera GT with all of the documentation, with all of the books, the cover, the battery tender, And again, the matching luggage set. This is going to be very interesting. And is this going to be another milestone in the story of Carrera GT sales? Well, it's certainly headed there. With 3 days to go, we're knocking on the door of 2 million. So should be another absolute peak price tag on this car.